So basically, in August 2017, I presented the communications plan, and in the communications plan, we presented about 4 or 5 strategies to engage the community. And among those are using modern communication tools, or the latest communications tools. And the progress that we made online and the presence of social media is definitely has increased. We have about 38% increase in Facebook followers, and also through our website, I get about 5 to 10 questions that I answer or I forward to other departments. So it's a two-way communication there. And the other strategy was integrating a community involvement plan with city projects, and one of that is the Riverfront Master Plan, where I was involved in the planning, and we created the different outreach places to go to and get the information. Community involvement plan with city projects, and as you may have heard, one of that is the Riverfront Master Plan. Created out information about the outreach, which was very places to go to and get the information. Others were including those communities that are not Riverfront Master Plan. Like for example, the Spanish-speaking places to go to Newberg and get the information. Others were including those communities that are not spearhead, like for example, planning places to go to Newberg and get the information. Others basically was a demand by those communities that are not spearhead, like for example, going every year, so they asked me to others basically was a demand by those communities that are not spearhead, like for example, going every year, so they asked me to let's see. Also, with the police department and a community organization called Unidos, we've been working with the Latino community, providing community information sessions about the police department and making that connection. So we've been making strides in connecting the Spanish-speaking community with the police department, which we have more work to do, but we've been very successful in that. And let's see, another strategy was employing multimedia level and multi-level communications approach. And so in almost 2 years, like I said, we made significant presence in social media and some videos that we posted out there, and email newsletters as well. Any questions?
Thank you. The other part that Rosa will be doing is what you've heard is each one of the departments, as they come up with some project, it's a given that they said, oh, can you have Rosa work on that to get the word out? So it's becoming more of a culture for all of us to do that. And you'll see her, she has a very important role, again, 2 weeks from now when we start laying out the campaign for just educating people about the budget closure and some of the strategies and asking people for their opinions. That will be Rosa's, one of her primary roles for that part. Mayor, the last goal has to do with transit, and Councilor Essen has that tonight under council business. So you can take a few minutes here if you want. It's going to be about 5 to 10 minutes or later in the meeting, and he'll cover that goal for us, number 13.
Pleasure of Councilor Essen. Later? Yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be fine. If you want to do it then. Okay. That concludes your review. Anything further to come before us in work session? None. Then we will be in recess until approximately 7:05, when we'll reconvene in our business session. take your seats, please. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newberg City Council business session for August 6, 2018. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Mayor, all present with the exception of Councilor Bacon, who is absent.
Would you please rise for Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item we have is a presentation by the Newberg, the Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce quarterly report, and I invite Mr. Carr Biggerstaff forward, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, and City staff. My name is Carr Biggerstaff. I'm the 2018 President of the Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce. In front of you, you have the Q4 and cumulative report for both the Visitor Center and tourism function that the Chamber performs on behalf of the city for the year 2017-2018. It's very straightforward. I think the only thing worth probably calling out is that this year we got a $20,000 grant from Travel Oregon, specifically to be used for destination marketing, tourism promotion. So I've reflected that $20,000 grant in the revenue line as other revenue. And then under expenses, we have an associated $35,500 worth of program that was done. It was called the Rain or Shine program, and it was done during this early spring to promote destination marketing. And that's a combination of $15,500 of Chamber TLT funds and that $20,000 grant. You'll see $18,000 represented under the grant. We have an invoice out for the remaining $2,000. Other than that, the only other additional information we've included was some extra information on the website, just so you'd have a feel for the pages that are most often visited on the visitor website, not the Chamber of Commerce website per se, but the Visitor Center website. With that, I'll take any questions.
You remain available for questions?
I'm always available for
Yeah,
questions, Mr. Mayor.
None appearing. Thank you very much. Appreciate the report.
Thank you.
I'm glad you clarified, because I was reading, I only saw the 18,000 here. So thank you for the clarification on the invoice.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe I'm looking to Joe for the next item, government finance officers.
Mayor, we do have a presentation tonight, but actually we'll ask Caleb Lippert to come and describe a little bit about the ward and with the accompanying plaque. Oh, couldn't get.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors. Caleb Lippert, Assistant Finance Director. So each year, as you all know, we go through an annual audit that we have a third-party audit firm come and perform. And one of the things that we produce with that are our annual financial reports. And for 24 of the last 26 years, we have submitted our comprehensive annual financial reports to the Government Finance Officers Association, which is a national entity, and they do a lot of extra review of our annual financial reports, and there's some extra things that go into it as far as statistical information and as far as the presentation of the actual reports. And so this year, again, for the fiscal year 2017, we received the award again.
Any questions, Joe? Did you have any follow-up on that? And the plaque reads what?
And so the plaque says, Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, presented to the City of Newberg, Oregon.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, and congratulations to you and the staff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. That means Joe doesn't go to jail.
Right.
Okay.
That means all of us don't go to jail.
So with that, we will now move to the city manager's report, please.
So, Mayor, Council, Joe Hannon, your city manager, I'm just going to read 5 or 6 of the bullets off of the update about what's been happening in the city with your staff. Been a very busy time. We had kind of a quiet time about a month and a half ago, and now things are ramping up all across the city. Later in the meeting tonight, Councilor Essen will report about where we're at with progress with Yamhill County Transit. So it looks like you'll still be around to hear this. There's some pretty exciting things for us that really no cost or utilizing some additional money coming from the state to us that will make a difference in our routes and the future that Councilor Essen will cover. So both of us have tag teamed, with Councilor Essen being the representative of the city and me as the staff person to the Transit Advisory Committee. Also, we kicked off with under kind of the supervision or the leadership of our city engineer with Karen Hoffman. We're starting the process, and you heard that a little bit earlier, of taking this building and making it seismically safe and being able to withstand a major cascade type of an earthquake. It's going to be up to 2 years that process will take. But now we've started bringing all the departments together, trying to get all of the questions asked before we finished with bringing an architect and other engineers on board. So there's more to come. Doug has, in community development, has been very busy with a series of items. We met with this last week with a local investment group to looking at making some potential significant investment in the downtown area. Part of it involves real estate, so at the next council meeting in executive session, you're going to be asked to hear this report and then give guidance back to staff of what you would like to do. Doug has also been in discussions with 2 different hoteliers or 2 different investment groups. And if you remember, part of our economic development plan is to try to encourage hotels at 2 ends of the city and in the downtown. But we've been concentrating on the downtown for those hotels. So it's moved to a stage of working on some conceptual plans and bring other property owners around these areas. So more to come. We don't do that by ourselves. We do it in cooperation with the Downtown Coalition and with the new chamber exec and a few of the people, if Carr hadn't already left, unless he's still here. The chamber has a group of people that helps us, that then reaches out to these different investors. I think it's been in the news, but still very newsworthy that the city received from the governor's office the official notification of the grant of $740,000 that will help as one part of a package of extending Crestview from the roundabout there on Springbrook all the way to Highway 99. It still has a ways to go, but big part of that financing coming out of the state is hard work on a lot of people like Doug and the mayor to make that happen. And then we put the other players with the Austin development, some of our other city funds, and then the development with J.T. Smith there at the signal where it will hook into 99. So we're excited about that. We've been nurturing a relationship, and we're looking for some partnership with U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now, they primarily work in rural areas under 15,000, but they'll work with communities of 35,000 less on two particular areas. One is in the area of extending broadband or internet kinds of services. So we see this as maybe an opportunity and a partnership with them and also with the school district to expand our internet capacity and broadband. And the other one, and we're just looking for how we might work together on some worker housing. And this is slightly different than farm worker housing, but of just housing that might partner with an existing business for the business either to build or support or work with others to build housing for their employees. It's just one more peg or one more step in finding or trying to deal with the housing crisis that we have in the city. With the mayor, attended the Providence Hospital's dedication on Friday. Big deal for all of us for the kinds of medical services it provides that. You know, with the cancer care and the cardiac services there and all of the new primary doctors, it just puts us in a position where we don't have to leave our community to get really quality care, both with Providence and the other providers that are in the community. We've discussed some opportunities and maybe partnerships for the building next door, the old VFW hall, of a conversion to an event space. So we're working with the new owners of that, the Fortunes, a longtime family here and in Dundee, and looking at opportunities of what that might look at. And so there'll be more to come. And then finally, and probably if you have any questions, Doug can answer these about the continuing conversation and just static out there about the mill. The good news is that we are at least talking to the decision makers at West Rock, but still there's nothing that has changed up to this point. Reminder, if you have a chance, that this Friday we have one of our officers, and I don't know if Chief took off or still here, but we have one that's graduating from the academy in Salem. It's 11 o'clock, so if you're down in that area, encouraged. It's quite a ceremony, and our officer going through right now is actually, which is a big deal, is the spokesperson for this graduating class. And with all the different agencies, including the big ones like Portland and, you know, Corvallis, whoever, our officer is there at the head of the class. So, Mayor?
Did you want to do that other piece?
Oh, yes, I do. So,
I was wanting to maintain
I know.
my anonymity.
Yes, I know, it's horrible. So, I'm going to step out here because, and it's a little bit different. We just heard that there was a presentation that I made a few minutes ago about the finance reporting and a national organization. Well, Mayor Andrews is among his peers. And what this means is with all of the mayors in this state, recently, about a week ago, so he wasn't here to be in the parade, which he loves to be in, but he was down at the Oregon Mayors Association, and they gave him an award. And, you know, okay, so people get awards, another plaque on the wall. this one's kind of special when it comes from the peers, and I'm going to read you a little bit, and this is not meant to be an obituary because it looks like huge of all of the things that we have on this list. But Mayor Andrews so if you'd come out here, Mr. Mayor, because he does this, so I get to give it this time. And a lot of you know Mayor Bob, so you've heard these things. But if you don't know, or from the people that are on the internet, so Mayor Andrews is completing his third 4-year term as the mayor, and then before that he had a short time was in the council. He has received or been awarded, it's called the Mayor's Leadership Award. It's the highest thing that the mayors in this state can award. And when you go down the things that he was nominated for or recognized, it's pretty impressive. He took a faith-based emergency preparedness program. There's not one of those anywhere else in the state. And he's brought our churches together, and we don't have any money committed to that. If you were here earlier, you heard that we're doing a bunch in emergency preparedness, but it's going to be with initiatives like the mayor started, that the churches are the backbone of our community of being ready if when Cascadia hits us. For so many years, the mayor has been the advocate, the person out in front of Special Olympics, whether it's at the statewide level or for us for so many years having the Special Olympics here. That is because of Mayor Bob. The Martin Luther King celebration. If you've not heard his speech, you've missed out. Go on to, I think it's on our website of the speech at Martin Luther King this last time, but it was a very striking speech about inclusiveness and about our community reaching out to so many people here to say that social justice is a part of what we believe in without getting into all the politics of immigration and all that. And the Martin Luther King celebration in a very big way has happened because of the mayor and a group of citizens that have put that together, and I don't even know what it's year, I should say, 7 years with that. The mayor has been part of every year a prayer breakfast, which again brings people from throughout the area together to recognize the need and the importance of working together in our community. It was the mayor and a few other people, and I thought I saw Brian Stewart was in here, but we are now the Camellia City for the state. And there's I think only one other city that has a flower, the Rose City with Portland. So you go, oh, what's the big deal? Except that we have had the camellias here, and you can see it up there on the wall, for over 50 years. And it was the mayor taking the reins from another mayor to say, let's do something about it. Both be part of our marketing, to celebrate it around the community. If you look downtown, you see these big tubs out there. Well, it's not by accident. It's people, including the mayor, that got the camellia to be in people's homes and in the downtown area celebrating us. His Habitat for Humanity, and some of those folks are in here kind of quiet, but being in the board and the activity and just encouraging every chance that we can to try to support Habitat as Habitat supports other people throughout the community. Family Place, one that you wouldn't think about, or maybe think Mayor has been with that and with the Relief Nursery behind the scenes, as much as a mayor can do, of supporting these groups in our community and getting other people involved with that. Unidos, of reaching out to our Hispanic community in town and supporting the police and Chief Casey to say, this is really important for us. That's been Mayor Andrews. We have Sister City program that's gone on, in some cases, for over 20 years with Poisdorf, Austria, and also with Japan. Just recently, again, in the last week, we had, I don't know, about 20 or 25 of the students from Japan that were here. That has been an ongoing relationship, and it's cultural. It gives us opportunities for our young people to go to Japan and for them to come here and go into host cities. It also is economic. If you look in Newberg right now, we have 3 major Japanese companies here. And gosh, if we had a latte to give away, we'd say, name who the 3 are. but Ushiro that's there on Mountain View by ADEC, major employer here. A brand new one that took over a long-term town, Barry Noir. That was the mayor working with the governor's office and Doug Rux and the economic development to help make that happen. We're now a major Japanese firm came here, is expanding it, kept every one of the employees that were here already, and a big deal. And then some that you might not know about, Argyle, that's just on the other side of Fred Meyer, Japanese firm, Kirin, you know, beer manufacturer, but it's a major employer that's right here at the wine industry, and that's been part of supported with these cultural exchange and economic changes. He was with a couple of the members that are up here, pushed in a big way our community engagement position, where we reached into the library and pulled one of our professionals from there, where Rosa now is out in the community trying to get the words out. You heard earlier about Facebook and that reaching out. Well, that was because of some of the people up here that may not be described as millennials and have embraced things like the Facebook and the Twitter accounts to try to reach more people and get the word out. There's more, but we'll leave that to give it to the newspapers and do it. So, Mayor, we're very proud of you from our organization, and on behalf of, you know, the mayors of this state, they've recognized you as one of the supreme. So we present this to you.
Oh, I get to make a motion now, don't I? Sure. We will now move to council appointments, and I will move that you ratify my appointment of Shannon Buckmaster to the Transient Lodging Tax Ad Hoc Committee with a term that will expire in December 31, 2020. Shannon is the new director of the chamber, and this is a position that is on that committee that was occupied by the previous director of the chamber, and we wanted to continue that. And she stepped forward and said she would accept the appointment. So with that, I make my motion that you ratify that appointment. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? None appearing. Do I hear a call for the question? Question's been called for. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The appointment is conveyed. Shannon happened to, I was looking out, but I didn't see Shannon with us. We heard the earlier report from Carl Biggerstaff, but I think Shannon had something else in here. But thank you anyway. And with that, we will now move to the area of public comments. And I have a couple of people that have signed up for the public comment area. And I'm going to call on a Mr. David Jackson, please. This is a time when you may address the council on items that are not on the, go ahead and have a seat, that are not on the agenda or that are in the on the consent calendar. And we ask you to keep your remarks confined to a 5-minute period. And with that, would you please identify yourself and proceed?
My name is David Jackson. I'm here on behalf of the Newberg Veterans Group Banner Committee. And I remember speaking first about a year ago with Steve Olson, just before he retired from the planning department. And he left some big shoes to fill, and he the Newberg sign code is pretty complex. And I think even sometimes the people working in the planning department struggle with some of the features. But you may have noticed we have about a half dozen of our banners at the Dodge dealer currently. And we have about a half dozen more, and finding locations that benefit the veterans who have been putting their lives on the line for ever since the country began, and honoring them certainly improves the quality of life in the city of Newberg and the area around here. A lot of traffic goes through our streets here. Some of the problems with Newberg putting up banners is that ODOT owns a lot of the streets, or Yamhill County. And so it's difficult finding locations on private property and in the city. And I spoke with a member of a retired police officer in Beaverton. If you've driven through Murray and Shoals Ferry, I counted over 70 banners. We have 6. But Beaverton is a larger city. They don't have the encumbrances of ODOT owning their streets. And they recently, about a year and a half ago, they added a provision to their sign code that gives exemption from locations and sizes and having to pay a 1-year fee for private property owners to hang the signs. And that's the community outreach. There's retired police officers that run that. So they're pretty successful. And if possible, I would like to see something inserted into the Newberg sign code. Probably has to go before the planning commission, or I have copies of just that section there that I forgot to give to Ms. Ryan when I brought in my request to speak here. But if I may, if I pass these out to the...
You give those to the city recorder, or to the city attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's just basically, we'd like to find places to put more of these banners and honor these veterans that have been serving us so well. Do you have any questions, or?
Councilor McKinney?
I thought I understood that at the beginning of the discussion now, several years ago, is that Mountainside was a
Mountain View?
potential Mountain View.
Yeah, we had 2 banners at the church on Mountain View, and
Okay.
those were an earlier design.
Yes.
And they're among the 6 that are hanging by the Dodge dealer.
So they are part of the 6. But there's no major thoroughfare of banners in terms of an extended portion of Newberg Street to hang these banners.
Well, part of the problem is that is ODOT owning a lot of the streets, and even I think along Hancock, ODOT has some kind of requirements that sound like no banners are allowed to be hung between Harrison and River Street.
99W, 217, and 219 are all ODOT
Yeah,
thoroughfares.
there are some exceptions, I think, College and Main Street, which run perpendicular to Hancock and First. But so it's a struggle, getting more banners up, and part of it is because Newberg doesn't always own the streets. It would be nice if ODOT, since we have the bypass, if ODOT would take ownership of the bypass and give the Newberg streets to you guys. Except then you have to repave them instead of ODOT taking that.
What you have offered here is an excerpt from the Beaverton
Yes.
Development Code. Thank you.
Yes,
I
just
appreciate
that portion of it.
And we will have a later discussion on this and
Okay.
see where we go. Thank
And
you.
I have the name and phone numbers of the banner committee chair.
I think we also have that information.
Okay. There's a Mark Hyde, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And
Thank
you probably remember Faith Gerstel. She
Yeah.
was head of the banner committee about a year ago when
Yes.
I went to the first one meeting, knew nothing about banners, and I kind of got sort of from the fire into the frying pan. I got thrown into the frying pan, and I knew nothing about banners, but
Well, now you do.
it's been an interesting experience. Thank you for your
Welcome to
time.
the fray. Thank you for your remarks. We appreciate it. Mr. Rick Rogers, please.
Good evening, Mayor Andrews, city councilors. First off, Mayor Andrews, congratulations, a well-deserved award.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just, an invitation for you all. I think you've gotten it via email, but me, obviously not being a millennial, I wanted to come and do it in person as well. So, the Habitat for Humanity Elected Officials Build Day, our annual build day for you all as the elected officials, is Saturday, August 25th from 9 to 4 o'clock. If you can be there part of that time, all that time, or just want to stop in and say hello, we've invited you all your counterparts in our service areas, so Newberg, Dayton, Dundee, and St. Paul, as well as our state and federal representatives. I'm not sure how many we will see, but if you can find it on your schedule, if you can come by, and we would love it. So, thank you. And I think Sue's got some copies of the flyers.
Thank you.
All right. And you do too. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick. Any questions or comments for Rick? None. Thank you. Appreciate it. With that, we will move to the consent calendar. Councilor Johnson?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the consent calendar.
It has been moved and seconded. Do we adopt the consent calendar? Is there any further discussion? There being no further discussion, the question has been called for. All that are approved the consent calendar signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. The consent calendar is adopted. And with that, we will move into a series of public hearings. And the first public hearing we have will be addressing ordinance 2018-2833. And this is an ordinance approving the 2018 amendment to the Springbrook Specific Oaks Plan and the Newberg Municipal Code to remove the restriction on residential development within the F1 area within the RP and SP zone. Staff report, please. After I make the inquiry, we got a couple of things here we need to take care of. So first of all, I need to know from the council, this is a quasi-judicial land use procedure, so are there any abstentions, bias, ex parte contact, conflicts of interest, or objections to jurisdiction? None appearing. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Truman Stone City Attorney. I'm here to read the quasi-judicial announcements required for land use hearings. Certain announcements are required before the commencement of a quasi-judicial land use hearing. This hearing deals with the land use decision of a comprehensive plan text amendment. The approval of this is that sentence is inapplicable. The announcement required by Oregon Revised Statute ORS 197.763 is as follows. The applicable substantive criteria for the decision are listed in the ordinance Exhibit C titled Findings. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the criteria described above or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation that you believe applies to this decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The applicant who has the burden of proof may have at least 7 days after the record is closed to submit final written argument. At the close of the testimony portion of the hearing, the applicant will have to decide if the applicant wishes to submit further written argument. And for, under the statute, the definition of argument is assertions and analysis regarding the satisfaction or violation of legal standards or policy believed relevant by the proponent to a decision. Argument does not include facts. Evidence is defined as facts, documents, data, or other information offered to demonstrate compliance or non-compliance with the standards believed by the proponent to be relevant to the decision. If the applicant wishes to make a submittal, no further deliberation shall take place tonight. If the applicant waives that right, the council may proceed with deliberation. And that's the announcements.
Thank you. With that, we would like to have the staff report, please.
Mayor Andrews, I'd like to introduce this presentation, comprehensive plan amendment of the Springbrook Oaks specific plan, RPSP Area F1, and introduce into the record my staff the staff report, CPTA 18-0003, and exhibits A, B, and C. The applicant is MJG Development. The owner of the property is Worth Family LLC. The request is for a site-specific comprehensive plan amendment of the Springbrook Oaks specific plan, RPSP Area F1, to allow residential use. This was originally a use that was allowed in this area, and I'll get into the reasons why it's not at this point. Location is west of 879 Providence Drive and south of Providence Newberg Medical Center. The tax lot is 3216-02026. The parcel size is about 6.66 acres, and the zone is residential professional specific plan, and the review criteria that we used is at the bottom there. The subject property is outlined in red. To the south of it is Friendsview, and to the north is Newberg, the medical center, Providence Medical Center, and to the west is an industrial building. The Newberg-Dundee bypass area kind of goes in right about here, and that's where the proposed area is, and that's kind of the final area.
On this map, where is the new Oregon Clinic located?
Right. I believe it's right in here.
Thank you.
Springbrook Oaks specific plan was originally adopted by the City Council on August 2nd, 1999. The Area F1 previously allowed residential use. Springbrook's Oaks Area F1 was amended in 2006 to prohibit residential use to eliminate the impacts from the future planned Newberg-Dundee bypass. That's why I kind of pointed out at this point it goes to the just to the east of Providence Drive, and they've had further refinement of the bypass plan, and there's no longer the need to prohibit this residential use in the F1 area. The findings, it meets several state planning goals and Newberg comprehensive plan goals, including citizens' involvement, land use and planning, the economy, housing, urban design, transportation, public facilities and services and goals and policies, energy and urbanization, and also it's consistent with the Newberg comprehensive plan housing and residential land needs. The residential density proposed for this area, again, and this would just be going back to what they were originally permitted, would be 21.8 units per acre, or possibly up to 145 units on 6.66 acres. If you look in that first column, this would be under the HDR area, so there's a need between 2025 for another 89 acres, and again, this would be 6.66 acres. The findings: adequate public facilities and services are available for future use, complies with the state transportation planning rule. The applicant provided Measure 49 waiver, and the section there at the bottom isn't applicable. They're not asking for any sort of boundary adjustment or anything like that. This would be the amendment needed in the Newberg Development Code, section 15.346.070B. It would provide for a minimum or a minimum lot area, a dwelling area of 1,500 square feet, and the maximum dwelling would be 21.8 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation recommends that the City Council adopt ordinance number 2019-2833, which approves the 2018 amendment to the Springbrook Oaks specific plan in Newberg Municipal Code to allow residential use for the RP-SP zone within the F1 area with exhibits A, B, and C. And I'll answer any questions.
Questions for staff at this time? Councilor Johnson?
Good evening. So in the Exhibit C findings, under the, I'm trying to find land need and supply, section 5, there is another number 5, findings. The applicant, oh wait, no, it's number 5. A traffic study shall be submitted for any proposed change that would significantly affect the transportation facility, or that will allow uses that would increase trip generations in excess of 40 trips per PM peak hour. Do you have any inclination of how many units they plan on putting there, and if it will go past that 40 trip per peak hour?
Yeah, not at this point. We haven't received any development applications.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff at this time? Thank you. We will call on the principal, the applicant, the principal proponent, and I believe Minnie Dukas is going to address us. If you would come forward, state your name, and welcome this evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Mimi Dukas. I'm with AKS Engineering. Tonight I'm representing MJG Development, and they're available if you have any questions for them. As staff pointed out, we are requesting an amendment to the Springbrook Oaks.
Do you want Mr. Googler to join you or not?
Only if you have questions. He's
Would you like
available.
to join Mimi at this time? Okay, we'll leave you rest. Continue, Mimi.
So we are requesting a minor text amendment to the Springbrook Oaks specific area plan only for area F1, and that is to restore residential uses as an allowed use within the zone. As staff pointed out, this is a bit of a cleanup. In 2006, staff had concerns about residential uses in relation to the bypass, and thankfully the bypass has now moved forward. Those protections are no longer necessary, and so we would like to go ahead and put that as an allowed use back into the sub area. In addition, since 2006, the region and the city are all experiencing a housing shortage, so the importance of allowing residential uses is that much more amplified. So that is what we're requesting. Councilor Johnson, you asked about traffic impact analysis. For this proposal, this is a text amendment, and under transportation planning rule, you need to analyze the highest and most intense use. Residential is really not that. So the transportation system plan that you have in place is based on the most intense office use within the zone, and so this is an equivalent or lesser impact to your transportation system. When a land use application comes forward to propose actual development, if we trigger that more than 40 trips per day, then the transportation analysis would be required for that specific development. And ultimately, the goal is to do a Friends View development in that location. We don't know what the final density will be. It depends on how the site planning works out. But as staff pointed out, the maximum density based on what the zone allows is about 145 dwelling units. So I'm sure we'll strive to fit in as much as we can, meeting the parking requirements and screening and buffering and things like that. So aside from that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We appreciate staff's effort on this, and we request approval.
Any questions for Ms. Dugas? You sure? Remain available, if you would.
Here at your beck and call.
All right. I have nobody else signed up to speak to us, so I'm going to close the oral presentation unless you will have a chance if you want to come back and do any rebuttal. Do we have any written communications?
I have not received any written communications on this ordinance.
All right. With that, do you have any further comments that you would like to make? Is there a final recommendation or report by staff, please?
Mr. Mayor, there's additional announcement.
Mayor Andrews, I would recommend that the staff recommends the City Council adopt ordinance number 2018-2833, which approves the 2018 amendment to the Springbrook Oaks Specific Plan, Newberg Municipal Code to allow residential use for the RPSP zone within the F1 area with exhibits A, B, and C.
This time, any further questions for staff? Thank you. Appreciate it very much. City Attorney?
We have to ask the applicant whether they're waiving the 7-day rebuttal period, and they indicate that they are.
We got the...
Let the record show that they nodded their head. If the decision is not made tonight and continued to another date, the record could be reopened at that later date by motion of the council. Therefore, do not assume no further evidence will be taken. If the decision is made tonight, the council has the authority to reconsider the decision following proper procedure. This motion to reconsider is usually required to be made at the next meeting of the City Council. The fact that the council could reconsider their decision does not affect the length of time for appeal of that decision. And that's the announcements.
And you did hear that they waived. This is their first reading. So we will close the hearing and we will move into deliberations. If you wish to deliberate, there needs to be a waiver of the second reading. Councilor Corey?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we waive the second reading.
Second. Been moved and seconded that we waive the second reading. Is there any further discussion? There being no further discussion, the question's been called for. All in favor of waiving the second reading signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. Second reading is waived. To the main motion, and that's the adoption of ordinance 2018-2833. It has been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 2018-2833. Is there any further discussion? There being no further discussion, the question's been called for. This is a roll call. City Recorder.
Councilor Johnson?
We have to, we missed it on that one. Councilor McKinney, we need to make the motion by title only, read by title only. So, by title only, is that in your motion? Yes. Okay.
And the second concurs?
Yeah.
Okay.
You beat me to that one.
Ordinance number 2018-2833, an ordinance approving the 2018 amendment to the Springbrook Oaks Specific Plan and the Newberg Municipal Code to remove the restriction on residential development within the F1 area within the RP-SP zone.
City recorder.
Counselor Johnson? Counselor Corey? Counselor McKinney?
Yes.
Counselor Essen?
Yes.
Mayor Andrews?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0, 1 absent. Thank you. I appreciate that. And with that, we move to the next agenda item, which is consideration of ordinance 2018-2838. Now, this is an ordinance amending a comprehensive plan amendment designation from medium density residential MDR to high density residential HDR, amending the zoning designation from R2 medium density residential to R3 high density residential for a property located at 1109 South River Street, Yamhill County Tax Lot 3220 CC-05400. This again is a quasi-judicial land use procedure, and I'll call for any abstentions, biases, ex parte contact, conflicts of interest, or objections to jurisdiction. None appearing? City Attorney.
This is going to sound a little like deja vu all over again, but because this is a new hearing with a separate record, we're required to reread the quasi-judicial announcements. With my apologies to the audience. Certain announcements are required before the commencement of a quasi-judicial land use hearing. This hearing deals with the land use decision of a comprehensive plan map designation and zone change. The announcement required by the Oregon Revised Statutes, ORS 197.763, is as follows. The applicable substantive criteria for the decision are listed in the ordinance Exhibit A, which is begins on page 7 of 94 in the electronic version. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the criteria described above or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation that you believe applies to this decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The applicant who has a burden of proof may have at least 7 days after the record is closed to submit final written argument. At the close of the testimony portion of the hearing, the applicant will have to decide if the applicant wishes to submit further written argument. ORS 197.763 defines argument as assertions and analysis regarding the satisfaction or violation of legal standards or policies believed relevant by the proponent to a decision. Argument does not include facts. Evidence means facts, documents, data, or other information offered to demonstrate compliance or non-compliance with the standards believed by the proponent to be relevant to the decision. If the applicant wishes to make a submittal, no further deliberation shall take place tonight. If the applicant waives that right, the council may proceed with deliberation. And that concludes the legal announcement.
Thank you. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So I'm standing in for Cheryl Keynes, who on a well-deserved respite from the loads of work that we're going through. So as been mentioned, this is 1109 South River Street. It's a comprehensive plan zone map amendment, CPMA 180002 and ZMA 180001. As we must do, we must enter the entire staff report, exhibits, and attachments into the record. So the location of the property is highlighted in yellow. So it's on River Street. It's just north of the bypass. So this proposal has been indicated would change the comp plan designation on the property from medium density residential to high density residential. and it would have the corresponding change in the zoning from R2 to R3. As we had indicated to the Planning Commission, there's no development proposed at this time, though we're going to show you a slide of a concept of what it might look like. We are not looking at the physical development to occur on the property at this time. So here's the slide that shows you the proposed development that potentially could occur. On the left-hand side of the screen is a stream corridor. You can't develop within the stream corridor, but you can transfer density out of the stream corridor to the upland portion that is developable. So on the right-hand side, so left is the stream corridor over here, River Street located at this location, and then bypasses just off to the bottom of the map. So these are potentially buildings that could be constructed in the future, and then the corresponding parking field. This gives you a little bit more. So the MDR is in yellow. The large arrow represents the location of the property. This is the comp plan. This is the zone, so it's R2. This does abut up to a high-density residential, which is across the stream corridor, which is already developed. The approval criteria, there are 3 in this particular land use action. And so it has to be consistent and promote the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Public facilities and services are or can be reasonably made available, and is compliance with state transportation planning rule. So in summary, on the goals and policies that apply to this particular case, to provide a diversity of housing types and density, an adequate supply for housing for residents in the community, is to locate medium and high density residential, immediate access to collectors and minor arterials, locate near commercial services and public open spaces. Low and moderate income housing should be dispersed throughout the city. We've talked about that in a lot of land use cases over the years. And encourage an adequate supply of rental housing dispersed throughout the community. So this is a table. So in your previous case you saw one. So this is an update. So this is the original table that goes back to 2005 when we did projections, when it showed an overall deficit of about 380 acres of residential land. You could see in the HDR we had about 76 acres. Based upon tracking of data over time and what was provided by the applicant in this particular situation, and changes we've done to lot sizes in R1 and R2 and so forth to address efficiencies, is where we're at is continues to be a deficit of residential land in the community of approximately overall 179 acres. But this one goes to 55 acres of high density and 87 acres of medium density. So I'll toggle back. And so you can see is that we're still deficient in categories from low density to high density within the community. And what this proposal is doing is taking the medium density and proposing to change it to high density. It just makes it more deficient in medium density. Comp plan policies and goals. Multiple modes of transportation, higher density development in residential areas near transit corridors, commercial areas, and employment centers. So this is a map that represents proximity, about a half a mile to Edwards School. You are about 3/4 of a mile to downtown, about 3/4 of a mile to George Fox, and you're about 1/4 of a mile to Levitt Park. So there is open space, and then there is the stream corridor that runs off to the bottom of the map to the left. For public facilities, that adequate public facilities, so South River Street already has lines in it. This would, under the difference between the medium density and the high density, would be an additional 23 units at the upper end. So we're talking about 45 to 48 units total on this site, potentially. System capacity is in place to serve the additional units. Streets, South River is a major collector. Our engineering department, we've all driven down River Street, and it's not built out to a full collector street standard at this point in time. But if this was approved and they came through and did a development proposal, then we would be meeting with them talking about what improvements do they need to do along their frontage of River Street. And of course, River Street is connected to other collectors and to Highway 99 at the north. The TPR analysis was part of the application. There was no change in the functional classification of the streets to serve the property. There will be some increase in traffic, but as our engineers looked at the report, it's not significant. It's consistent with the TSP, and it does not degrade performance. So we have a need for high-density residential land in the community. This proposal is proposing to address that. It complies with the comprehensive plan. There is adequate infrastructure in place or can be made available, and it complies with the transportation planning rule. As we put into the staff report at the Planning Commission, we did receive some public comments at that hearing, and there's a written comment that's in yours. In summary, some of the issues that were brought up is about the condition of River Street overall, deteriorated asphalt, nature, the width of the roadway itself, concerns about the intersection of River Street and Portland Road, Highway 99W. We heard some comments and concerns about the open space area in the back, kids getting down into the open space and playing in the creek corridor. When we looked at those, is that we don't have any immediate improvements on River Street planned through capital improvements or through the TUF program. I think it's 2021. There's some improvements, there's some road improvements on River Street, basically from about 2nd Street down to 8th Street, but not further south. Comments were provided to the Planning Commission that this area is within the Riverfront Master Plan study area, where we will be looking at infrastructure and transportation improvements over the course of the next 10 months, 11 months or so. And we commented that we are also looking at the feasibility of a tax increment program that might be able to help fund some of those improvements. So in summary, is the Planning Commission was recommending that the City Council adopt ordinance 2018-2838. Thank you.
Councilor Johnson, Councilor McKinney.
Good evening, Mr. Rux. How you doing? I have a couple questions. The charts you showed with the comprehensive plan, land needs, and supply amendments, they confused me. So in one chart, we have a deficit of 31 acres for 2005 to 2025, and then the other chart, we have a deficit of 87 acres when it comes to MDR. And I'm not jiving with what those two charts, it's like they're the same chart, there's just different numbers in there, and so I got a little confused.
Okay, so this is a table that's in our comprehensive plan. So it was work that was done in 2004 and was brought forward to council in 2005. So it is a snapshot at a point in time about those numbers. So in 2015, when we were looking at a comp plan zone change on another piece of property in town, we worked with that applicant and provided information on what kind of comp plan zone changes have occurred. We looked at building permit data. We have several other projects that are going on. We got 3 of these going on at the same time. So we shared all of this baseline from 2005 and then the updated information we had in 2015. And we said, you need to build off of the updated information in 2015. So we've gone through and done comp plan and zone changes on other properties between 2005 and 2015. And so it's the second table, it's this one, which is capturing
today. 2015.
This one is capturing today.
Okay.
So it's 2017.
Okay, great.
All right. So this is where we're at. So where we had this 390 acre deficit back in 2004, 2005, with comp plan zone changes, efficiency measures that have been adopted by council for lot sizes and so forth. The best estimate we have, and looking at building data and so forth, the best estimate we have today with this is these are our deficiencies in our 3 residential designations.
Okay.
Follow on.
Follow on. So then, if this is the chart I'm going off of, it seems to me like we have a bigger shortage of MDR than we do HDR. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
That's what the number indicates. But I think what's important here is in the last 3.5 years we've talked about we have a deficiency of high-density residential land. This is where we can get the most number of units per acre. And we've talked about dispersing this throughout the community, and so, you know, we have density over on the east, we got it to the northeast, we got it to the north, we got it to the south. But we're not creating any new land. So if you go back and, as we were talking about in work session, is we're going through an urban growth boundary evaluation process, which will look at what we've got for update buildable land inventory information. So these numbers can change in the future. But to accommodate that demand that's there for the multifamily, the highest, is you have to make you're going to make a trade somewhere. Are you trading one category of residential for another, which that would make the medium go up, the low density goes down? Could someone look at, well, should we change industrial to multifamily? Okay, that has another set of dynamics. Do you change commercial for multifamily? That has another set of dynamics. In this case, because the property already has a comp plan of MDR and the zoning of R2, the applicant's saying, let's go up. I'll throw in a third piece, is we just got notification we got another grant to basically go back and do a housing needs assessment program that will update all of these numbers fresh with basically 2018 data.
Okay. Follow on.
Follow on.
So the second question I had for you was, this is, as you mentioned, near the riverfront master plan area. Is the hope that if that does end up developing, that this would be housing to help support that master plan?
It could. We are just we've identified the vision and the goals of the project. We've done some market analysis work. All this information is on the city's website under community development. And we looked at some existing conditions, and we looked at some pre-programmatic kind of ideas on the riverfront. And each one of those programmatic ideas has some kind of destination type of commercial activity at the end of River Street on the south side of the bypass. To support commercial type activities, you do need enough rooftops to be able to do that. So ancillary, yes, if you had some additional units, could it help support what might come out of the riverfront plan for some commercial activity to help serve the South Newberg area? Highly probable.
Right.
Possible.
One last one, and I'll be done. And looking at the map, and I did not get a chance to go out and drive by this, or I would have mentioned that during ex parte contact. What type of height limitations would this project had, and how does that compare to the other buildings around surrounding it? I know there's a high density behind it, but I'm more concerned about the ones alongside of it.
35 feet.
35 feet. So that'd be 2 stories, or?
Possibly could get 3, depends upon the pitch of the roof.
Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, and what are the sizes of the buildings around it? Are there mostly 2-story buildings?
To the north is single-family homes, and to the south is single-family.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilor McKinney?
The size and the shape of this parcel, does it lend itself to high density rather than medium density?
As you can see, it's a kind of a narrow and long parcel. Back to this one, yeah. It's kind of a narrow and long parcel. So what you have is a single-family home that's out front that was damaged by fire, and then you have a very long shed that runs along the south property line. So to try to do medium density, given the narrow width, and then now you're looking at, oh, now you need to put in a public street, so now you're looking at 50-foot right-of-way, and of course somebody tries to do that, you want to try to double load that roadway with homes on each side meeting our R2 dimensions. And I believe they kind of, in some pre-app discussions, looked at that opportunity, but a long, narrow one provides some additional flexibility for multifamily, because you don't have that public street infrastructure that you have to go back that ends up as a cul-de-sac.
So it lends itself to this high density.
It does, and it's adjacent to existing high density. So it is across the creek, So we always, from my perspective, is, you know, you don't want to spot zone little pieces of things here and there. You want to have something of a big enough scale. This one ties in with the HDR that's essentially to the north and the west. It's just you've got an open space area that kind of is created in between all three of those.
Follow on?
With it being high density, do you, there's ample parking to be able to accomplish this goal of high density?
That would be reviewed through a design review process, and we're not at that stage yet. So conceptually, they've looked at it saying, okay, X number of units, given, you know, 1.8 parking spaces per unit plus guest parking. They've sketched that out with that as the concept.
You're not anticipating a parking problem?
I am not anticipating one at this point in time. They've also done fire lanes. TVF&R was in there. You can see this turnaround concept that's here because it's more than 150 feet. So this would function as a location for a fire truck to be able to turn around.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other questions of staff at this time? None appearing. Thank you, Doug. I have nobody signed up to provide any testimony, either the applicant or any opponents or any other proponents. So with that, I'm going to open and close the oral testimony. Do we have any written comments that we've received that are not recorded?
No, we have not. I've not received any written comments for this ordinance.
Thank you. I'll close the comment period, either oral or written. And I would look to Doug for any closing remarks.
Mr. Mayor, Doug Rux again. So staff's closing remarks would be recommendation is to adopt ordinance 2018-2838 as recommended by the Planning Commission.
All right. City Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe the applicant's here. So with the applicant not here to waive the chance for written rebuttal, the council will not be able to consider this evening.
Thank you.
But I do need to finish reading my announcements.
Continue.
So the decision will not be made tonight and will be continued to another date. The record could be reopened at that later date by motion of the council. Therefore, do not assume no further evidence will be taken. And then if the council were to make the decision at the next meeting, just a reminder that the council has the authority to reconsider the decision following proper procedure. The motion to reconsider is usually required to be made at the next meeting of the city council following the decision. The fact that the council could reconsider their decision does not affect the length of time for appeal of that decision. And that's the conclusion of the legal announcements.
The applicant not being here to waive, we will not have any motion for a second reading. So with that, we will now move to a resolution make sure I have the right one here. This is a resolution approving the sale of the Newberg Animal Shelter after a public hearing and ratifying the purchase and sales agreement between the city and the Newberg Animal Shelter Friends dated June 21, 2018, thereby removing the council approval contingency to that agreement. This will be an administrative hearing. So with that, I'm going to ask if there are any conflicts of interest or any abstentions on part of the staff, or the council? None appearing. Staff report, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'll take this one.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Truman Stone City Attorney. This evening is the opportunity for the public to come and provide input on the proposed sale of the animal shelter. That is a requirement under the Oregon Revised Statutes whenever a municipality sells real property. I won't say much because much has already been said, but just kind of a brief overview of the history of this. For many years, the city had a very small building that was used as an animal shelter on Blaine Street. It was inadequate to the job. Some local citizens began the Newberg Animal Shelter Friends and began a long process of raising funds to build an adequate building for this community. It took many years. I can't recall right off the top of my head how many, but it was a long time and a lot of effort by folks. Finally, the building was built and opened in 2013. The city experiencing some budget difficulties. The police department cut the dog control officer position. The city had conversations with the Newberg Animal Shelter Friends, not wanting to see the shelter close. The Friends stepped up for the benefit of the community and the animals in the community to run the shelter, which they've been running now for the last 3 years under a lease agreement with the city. As the council is well aware, and I think most of the community knows this, we have a requirement to upgrade our 911 dispatch radio communication system to keep up with modern technology. The price tag on that is a large price tag, somewhere just above $3 million to do that. The city manager began a process of trying to determine where the money for that would come from, and one of the things that was looked at was the real property that the city owned but was not using for city functions, and the animal shelter and the Butler property being the two that were identified. So as the council knows, we've probably for about the last year been talking to the Animal Shelter Friends board, and you've been hearing from them frequently at council meetings. We have been negotiating what a sale of that property would look like, and the process was in February, I believe. The council gave staff some direction, and we went and got the property appraised. The appraisal is part of the public packet and part of this resolution. The appraisal opinion for the parcel was $680,000. In conversations with the Newberg Animal Shelter Friends, they pointed out that the parcel that was originally designed for the animal shelter was larger than the parcel that was appraised. And I guess let me just back up and say this was a parcel that the city bought that was approximately 19 acres from Baker Rock, identified for future expansion of the wastewater treatment plant and perhaps some other public infrastructure. When the bypass went in, the Oregon Department of Transportation bought a little more than 2 acres from the city for the bypass. So we now have a little over 17 acres. I can't remember exactly. The appraised parcel was 0.96 acres or 41,818 square feet. We, again, in the negotiations, some plans from the bid set when the shelter was first built showed a slightly larger property configuration of 50,114 square feet, which was a difference of 8,296 square feet. The appraisal report had a land value of $4.58 a square foot. So after some discussion and briefing the council on this, the proposed sale would be the full 50,114 square feet, which was an increase of $38,000 in just additional land based on the appraised value. So the price that has been negotiated is $718,000 for the building and the slightly larger parcel. The Newberg Animal Shelter Friends had proposed a $150,000 down payment with the rest to be financed over time with 3% interest, secured by a note and deed of trust on the property. To accomplish this, this parcel will have to be carved off of that larger parcel, and the parties have agreed to share in the cost of that partitioning. So on June 21st, the city manager and the animal shelter board signed a purchase and sale agreement. So that's kind of the earnest money offer for this transaction. There's a number of contingencies in that sale agreement. One of the contingencies is that the council hold the required public hearing and receive testimony from the public about this proposed sale. And that's what we're here doing tonight. We have published notice of this in the Newberg Graphic the last 2 weeks as required, or actually more than what was required by the statute. And with that, that concludes my staff report.
Questions of staff? Thank you. We have one individual that has signed up that wants to talk to us about this. And I remind them that we have those that are supportive, proponents, opponents, and undecided. We will call on this individual who is a proponent of the proposed resolution. I advise that any comments you keep your statements to a 5-minute period. And with that, I'm going to call on Mr. Rick Lipinski, please, to come forward. Please identify yourself and begin.
My name is Rick Lipinski. I'm with Newberg Animal Shelter Friends. Mr. Mayor, City Councilor, I'm happy to be here to finally talk about this. As you know, we are here today to hopefully conclude the months of negotiations and discussions regarding the sale of the animal shelter to Newberg Animal Shelter Friends. It's been over 18 years, Truman, since a group of citizens got together with the police chief and a couple of city councilors and decided it was time to replace Newberg's aging animal shelter. In those 18 years, we've had countless meetings with citizens, city councilors, mayors, city managers, the police department, and pretty much anyone who's shown an interest in the care of animals in the Newberg area. We all agreed the existing shelter needed to be replaced. All we needed was the money to do it. So Newberg Animal Shelter Friends was formed to achieve that goal. We held garage sales, bake sales, auctions, dinners, and any number of grassroots fundraising activities that we could think of. The first few years, the money dribbled in, and then once people started to see that we were serious about building the shelter, the donations increased. As we continued our mission to fundraise for the building, sometimes the rules would change, but we persevered and we stuck to our goal. This shows our level of commitment over the years to accomplish what we set out to do. Along the way, we've developed an incredibly dedicated team of staff and volunteers whose hard work and passion for animals makes us proud every day. I can say without exaggeration, there would be no new animal shelter in Newberg without Newberg Animal Shelter Friends. But let me say here that Newberg Animal Shelter Friends did not do this alone. We merely represent the citizens of Newberg, Dundee, and the surrounding area. These people have humbled us with their continued support and encouragement, and we can't thank everyone enough. Our community has been there for us every step of the way, and we would not be where we are today if not for their dedication. And we'd like to say a special thanks to the Austin family for their unwavering support. I wanted to recap some of the history just to demonstrate to the council that NASF made a commitment years ago to build a shelter and then to run the shelter for the city. We've done just that. This sale is good for both the city and Newberg Animal Shelter Friends. The city gets its money back and the Friends can look forward to a secure future. As you hopefully vote in favor of this sale, you can do so knowing that we will continue to honor the commitments we made to the community when we first started 18 years ago. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Lipinski? Councilor McKinney?
Rick, you and your group are to be complimented for enduring this process. If it was up to me, I'd just give it to you, but it's not for me to say. But the participation of the city in your group has been one of partnership, each seeking the best for one another. But I think that maybe we've finally made some lemonade out of these lemons here, and so thank you, Rick, for what you've done and for the group here along the way. So I just wanted to say that personally to you and members of your team.
Thank you, Councilor.
Any other comments? Thank you, Rick. Appreciate your remarks. Appreciate it very much. I have nobody else signed up to provide any information on that, so with that, I'm going to close the public testimony period. And we have, you've received written comments.
Mr. Mayor, I have received no written comments for this resolution.
All right. Is there any further questions you have? Then let's have summarized by the staff.
Again, the summary is this sale is $718,000. The Shelter Friends are credited with $480,000 on their contribution, both in fundraising and improvements they've made as a tenant, with $238,000 payable to the city, $150,000 down, the remainder over time with 3% interest. And it's a decision for the council at this point.
Thank you. You have before you the question of Resolution 2018-3488. Pleasure of the council. Councilor McKinney?
Urge the adoption of resolution number, where is it here, Mr. Mayor? 2018-3488.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 2018-3488. Is there any further discussion? There being no further discussion, the question has been called for. All in favor of Resolution 2018-3488 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. The motion is adopted, and we will proceed with the sale of the animal shelter. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate your time on this. And we will have a 7-minute break. We're in recess. And that's out of our hair now. Oh, I think so. Thank you. Councilors, take their seats, please. We are going to reconvene. And we're now moving to Resolution 2018-3493. This is a resolution to update the master fee schedule for the addition of bike rack fees, an adjustment to commercial plumbing per fixture costs, the inclusion of PUDs, and projects in institutional zones within the engineering land use review fees, and the removal of the city facility fee. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Dan Coiler. I'm the senior accountant. And as the Mayor said, I'm here to present a recommendation for an update to the master fee schedule, including bike rack fees, and adjustment to commercial plumbing for fixture costs, the inclusion of PUDs, which stands for planned unit developments, and projects in institutional zones within the engineering land use review fees, as well as the removal of the city facility fee. The master fee schedule was established in April of 2016. It was intended to provide an internal as well as an external source to be used as a reference for city fees. And in its youth, we occasionally bump into some fees that we neglected to include in it, or situational needs to make changes beyond our annual inflationary updates. Just to kind of peruse through the recommended changes, the building, the first fee was the bike rack fee. In August of 2011, there was the City Council directed staff to establish a comprehensive bicycle program, and within that was program, they came up with a bike rack that costs $100 each. The Public Works Department provides and installs those bike racks to downtown businesses, and the change here is just to formally approve the bike rack fee of $100 and to add it on to the master fee schedule, as it was previously previously not included. There's also an adjustment to a building fee for commercial per fixture plumbing. Due to a software conversion last year from Permits Plus to Excel Automation, there was a required methodology change that reduces the previously approved fee of $20.59 to $19.92 per fixture, which makes it the same as the non-commercial fee. The Engineering Services Department charges land use review fees. However, the fee within the master fee schedule does not include reference to planned unit developments, for which they perform these land use review fees. So we're recommending the inclusion of that verbiage within the master fee schedule, and to approve that cost recovery for planned unit developments. Additionally, there's no land use review fee associated with the engineering department's performance of development review for public improvements within institutional zones, and so institutional zones would be added within those fees. The City Hall fee has been, basically it was created in order to collect funds dedicated to the payment of a previous bonded debt, and the funds required to pay down that debt have been fully collected. So in May of 2018, the city ceased collection of this fee, and the master fee schedule is going to be adjusted to reflect the removal of that fee. And I noticed in reviewing the master fee schedule as well as this resolution that I failed to include the removal of fire and EMS fees, which can be found on page 6 of Exhibit A. As you know, our fire and EMS services have been transferred and are now performed by TVF&R. We kept these fees in the master fee schedule as a placeholder in the event that we did not end up getting annexed into TVF&R, and so it is appropriate that that those fees be removed from the master fee schedule now that they are permanently, we're being permanently serviced by TVFNR. So
The fire med on page 6?
that's
Is
correct.
that the one?
And so,
Fire matrix,
yeah.
the entire chart.
And so that would be an amendment to what is presented in this resolution. And that concludes my staff report.
Questions of staff?
Just have one.
Counselor Essen?
So overall, what's the net effect on all the fees? So we end up with less fees coming in than we had before, or are we ahead?
Well, most of these changes are just in part bureaucratic to add them to the master fee schedule, but there would be fees that would be coming in for the engineering services update changes, because otherwise those fees are not, those without approving those fees, we wouldn't be able to charge for the land use review for plan unit developments and projects within institutional zones.
So there is
minimal
some increase in
change,
revenue.
but yeah, minimal change in revenue.
Other questions?
That's my question.
Any others? All right. I have none. Pleasure of the council. Councilor Corey?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2018-3493 to include the amended elimination of the fire.
34 what?
3493?
There is an error on the agenda, that's my typo.
I'm giving the wrong number?
No, it is, you are giving the right number.
Okay.
The one on the agenda is the wrong number.
I would
So
like
the agenda has the wrong number.
Correct.
to include in the motion, amend the motion to include the elimination of the fire and EMS fees.
Second. It's been seconded. Johnson? Is there any further discussion?
Call the question.
No further discussion. The question's been called for. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. Your new fee schedule has been adopted.
Thank you.
Mr. Rux. We have a report on economic development. Do we not? Diversity, retention, partnerships, marketing, transportation, my goodness. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So we've concluded the second year of the Economic Development Strategy when this was originally adopted. Yeah, it was set out as a 3-year program where we would start the update in year 2. Well, I should say we start the update at the beginning of year 3, so that by the time we got to the end of year 3, which is April of 2019, we would have a new plan that would cover another 3-year period. So you may have remembered this graphic of all of the partners over 60 that participated in some way, providing feedback to the city and developing this economic development strategy. And of course, the center of the bullet, or the bullseye, are the key kind of partners that work on this project and this program on a monthly basis. The white band is those that we collaborate with, and then the outside green band are those that we talk with when we need to regarding economic development. So there are the 4 pillars: industrial, commercial, business development / workforce, and tourism and hospitality. So in the industrial sector, we have 9 strategies and 68 actions. Commercial's got 7 strategies, 41 actions. Business development and workforce, 8 strategies, 80 actions. Tourism and hospitality's got 3 strategies and 24 actions. So for the second year, we identified there are 4 strategies and 21 actions in the industrial side. So you can see diversify the economy, retain and expand existing industrial businesses, recruit traded sector companies, increase industrial land supply. So what I'm going to do is walk through these. Last year, you remember we probably had a lot of checks by a lot of things. This year, you're not going to see as many checks because a lot of the focus over the last year has been on workforce development, as we've gone through some of these land use issues which take more time on the industrial and commercial side. So we've been working on the integration of the vertical wine projects, and so that's a collaboration with the city.
What do you mean vertical?
This is think of it as supply chain. I use the analogy from dirt to global distribution of wine product. So how do we work with vineyards and winemakers and manufacturers who manufacture the equipment in order to process the grapes,
So from the
to
ground
debottling, yeah, all the way through.
Okay, thank you.
We had identified supply chain analysis work, and with some changes that were occurring at Strategic Economic Development Corporation, SEDCOR, changing of staff, that kind of got put on hold, but we've re-engaged with SEDCOR, and they've got that list. Retention visits, and I did something like, if you've got down to the details, 50 plus retention visits this year on the industrial side, talking with companies between myself and SEDCOR and Business Oregon. Business Resource Center, so the chamber is kind of repositioning themselves and focusing, and they're going to be functioning as that Business Resource Center. So there's a lot of things that collaborate into that. Coordinating recruitment activities, so this occurs across from the state level to the regional level to the local level, and then at the local level who we need to coordinate with on industrial recruitment. The next bullet kind of further elaborates on that with activities with Business Oregon and SEDCOR and GPI's Greater Portland, Inc. We had identified this year to continue the recruitment of food processing companies. We were not able to attract any additional ones. The one we had the year before, of course, was St. Cosaire. Maintaining relationships is always a big deal. You can't do this alone. You can't be an island. You have to have lots of partners to make economic development work. The roundtable forums, this again refocused itself. You remember we did a couple of the economic vitality summits. Now we went out and got a Ford Family Foundation grant for $86,000, and we're doing strategic doing programs. So we've done one for the Yamhill Cultural Coalitions, we've done one for the Tourism Committee, we've done internal training. There's some that are coming up to deal with homelessness. That's more of a focus, an outgrowth of some activities in in McMinnville, but we're using that. So it's not necessarily always a community-centric. There are others who can come in from around different communities to participate in this process. So we're still holding these roundtable kind of form things. We're just doing it in a different format structure. Connecting business to the Business Resource Center. So as the Chamber now has a new executive director, and they look at providing those resources. We've had conversations with the chair and the executive director on that. Data gathering. We didn't do a lot on data and marketing this particular year. Part of it is we as a community don't have a lot to market for industrial land. It's a supply issue, but we're working on it. Greater Portland, Inc., we do have some information we gave to them, put on their website. Again, this Business Resource Center. Infrastructure financing. So we've been working on that. We've made attempts to get infrastructure financing for down on Winooski Street to get sewer and water to go out to the east. We don't have a sewer line that goes down Winooski Road east of the wastewater treatment plant, but we do have land that's urban reserve that's out there. There's a line that's kind of north of Winooski that serves the animal shelter and a couple of businesses, but that line is getting closer to capacity. So there's a point in time. So we applied to see if we could get some grant funding. We were not successful in that one on the industrial side. But we did, as the city manager noted earlier, we got the formal notification of the $740,000 grant from Business Oregon, which is tied to Crestview Drive, which feeds into the industrial development that's up off of Mountain View. So that was originally, that goes back to 2015 when we were making those proposals and presenting in front of the Regional Solutions Committee. The UGB, we've talked about that, so we're in that process again, so that takes time. Shovel-ready sites, challenge to come by at this point in time. Some of that may occur with whatever the resolutions are with the mill site. Because if we have a site there, it's, as the mayor indicated earlier, mostly Councilor McKinney is outside of the city, but we have infrastructure that comes up to the edge. And so as we work on the riverfront plan, that'll be an opportunity to evaluate that. Telling story, we didn't have much to do on telling a story on expansions. Follow-up interviews, and so we did some over the course of last year because we are losing some companies because there's not land or buildings to expand into. And we did get the big check mark. We did get the city permitting process up, and we're still working through the bugs on that. Sanitary sewer master plan, we got that completed over the last year. We continue to talk with our variety of utility companies. And over the course of that last year, of course, the legislature with the House bill and so forth, additional funding for the bypass for phase 2, so that $22 million. On the commercial side, 3 strategies and 18 actions were the focus this year. So downtown revitalization, retaining existing commercial retail businesses, and increasing supply of commercial and retail land. So secure funds for downtown improvement implementation. So we budgeted money last year to look at a tax increment financing feasibility. We put that on hold. We rebudgeted it for this fiscal year, 18-19. Implement the recommendations of the downtown plan. So we provided an update to you previously about activities that occurred over the last year in the downtown plan. It wasn't that we put forth a lot of capital dollars to do things, but there were a lot of things that happened in the downtown area, ranging from the Yamhill Flats conversions to the bite of Newberg, to discussions we've had about the Butler property, to property transactions that have occurred between private entity to private entity. What's that? Yeah. The McCann Apartments occurred in the downtown area, so there was a lot of low-hanging fruit that was touched. So I mentioned the urban renewal area already. Best practices. I always talk to my peers around the state about things that they're doing in different sized cities. It's not that we're formally going out and doing an academic study of something, but we do try to glean out of them their kind of best practices, things that have worked for them, to consider if they would be viable to do here. The permitting software. Interview businesses exiting. So this is a program that is really being dealt with by the Chamber and the Downtown Coalition, but they have been talking with businesses. Again, the Resource Center trying to leverage that for the commercial retail side, which is a function of the Chamber. Working with Partners to Market sites. So between the city manager and I, we do talk with the brokers that are out there, both within the community, and I talk with those that are external to the community as well. We've met with a variety of property owners about redevelopment opportunities, ranging from things that may be going out on the east end of Portland Road to things that are going on in the downtown area for properties. And again, what I mentioned about the transactions from private party to private party, looking at existing buildings and what they might be repurposed for within the confines of those building spaces. Possible property assemblage, so we've been addressing and talking about that. Kind of think about the 2 ends of the couplet, because that's our focus areas where we've identified the possibility of a hotel could go in the downtown area, and those do have multiple ownerships. Enhance existing or create new incentive packages. I did not, unfortunately, have the time to really dive into in any detail about our loan program that we have, but we have talked to companies who have expressed interest, and so we've shared the program, had them talk with the Mid-Willamette Valley COG, who administers and does the underwriting for that program. And where it's feasible, we do make connections to Business Oregon and programs that they may have. Downtown urban renewal, we've talked about that before. That's rebudgeted for this fiscal year. Inventory vacant and underutilized. So we have work we did a year ago when we did the phase 1 of the buildable land inventory for the UGB. We had to inventory the downtown, and I have staff going back and confirming, but we haven't seen the development of the vacant stuff in the downtown area. But the other issue of that is vacant commercial land that's outside of the downtown is one that we need to inventory. So we have some first cut on some information, but we need to do some more work on that. Establish process and programs for connecting the brokerage community. So we've had conversations with a couple of our local brokers on the retail side. We need to continue to advance those conversations to continue to market our commercial opportunities. Implement recommendations, downtown improvement plan. So again, we mentioned we're working on that, low-hanging fruit over the course of the last year. Startup assistance at the Business Resource Center. So again, as the chamber is repositioned to function and take on that function as a business resource entity, they have connections to SCORE. We've tried to make connections to PCC and the Climb program. In the UGB, you know where we're at. We're into phase 2, and we're going through the evaluation process. For workforce, this is kind of a long list. So 3 strategies, 21 actions. So the accelerator, workforce development, and the Business Resource Center with the focus over the last year. We looked at the Chehalis Valley Entrepreneurs Network, and the thing is we don't have the capital and don't have the right mix yet. City manager asked me about this, and I forgot to mention it to him because we did have a conversation with McMinnville Economic Development Partnership as well about entrepreneurs and angel funding and how we might be able to put something together. So sometimes we got to think even a little broader than just our own geography. We got to look at maybe a countywide or even as a region-wide, which has led to some conversations in the last month or so, a couple of months, about Launch Mid-Valley, which is taking startup businesses and so forth and connecting them with the accelerator that's in Beaverton, which does virtual and online type of training program. So it was another way to possibly connect entrepreneurs. Promoted, marketed the accelerator. That's an ongoing. We evaluated the Scripps program. It's not a viable tool here. The Chamber and the Downtown Coalition are working on a buy local program. They're looking at revamping what they had started. So that's ongoing. Marketing and recruitment is an ongoing activity. And food carts, we checked the box. The food cart pod is in place. Promoting development of vacant parcels, we do that. I get flyers from brokers, city manager gets flyers, we share them, people who are interested. Business Resource Center, I've already talked about that. Mentorship program at the high school, that was done this year, so that was primarily a chamber function. We looked at expanding the chamber internship program to a year-round program. They actually rebranded it as the Chehalis Valley internship program moving forward, not the Steps Up program. And there are connections between the program here and the one that occurs in McMinnville, and they're sharing information back as they're looking at retooling the local program. And there's always ongoing discussions that are occurring on workforce development between Workforce Oregon Employment Department, the Willamette Workforce Partnership, which is the old Insight program, discussions with local companies about workforce development and their needs that they have. Local students during technical degrees. So these are conversations that occurred over the last year with PCC and Newberg High School, and ways to ensure that high school students are getting college credits for courses in the technical programs. And through the work that the high school was doing, was working on those soft skill programs, which also translates to the internship program where they have some of the soft skill training as well. Funding and grants for operations, did not address that one this year. There was all these ongoing conversations between the accelerator and George Fox and PCC and Chemeketa, so there's different things that are happening between startup companies and their connections to George Fox and the engineering school, and conversations with PCC about ways to enhance and leverage with the Newberg High School for career technical education and or things that could occur at the community college level at the high school facility, and then the connection between the high school to Chemeketa for the CNA program. So again, you have to always kind of look outside your own local box to find ways that you can make connections, and the chamber has been working on that. Did not address the issue about an FTE for workforce development at this point in time. I mentioned the AGIL funding earlier and traditional financing methods. So this is really looking at the kind of the GoFundMe alternative ways you might be able to assist startups. And last, as we get into the final category, is the tourism. So increasing tourism counts and the TLT committee program. So as I kind of mentioned earlier in the work session, so we didn't address the issue of signage, but the gateway area, especially on the east end of the couplet, and the cleanup of the landscaping of that, but we also have had conversations about signage as you enter in to Newberg from the east, the west, and to the south, and a way to kind of brand the camellia and incorporate those. And so Jay's department, in coordination with Russ, are working on that. And create a regional marketing campaign. And so this has been the big push over the last year with the TLT committee, is to reposition from grants, or I should refocus it from grants to actually marketing, to try to market this area as a location, a destination for tourists. We've had ongoing conversations with Fox, with the Air Park, with the Allison Inn, I think more with the Chamber, with wineries and so forth. Is, this is a destination to come for a tourist, visit wine country, go to the vineyards, but we also have other things because there's the agritourism component of this. So it's not all about wine. There are other destination opportunities. If it's Camp Tillicum, it could be the river and paddleboarding or kayaking and canoeing. It could be horseback riding. There are lots of different things that attract people to this location. So annual report. So the chamber provides an annual report. We give an annual report on what we're doing with the ECDEV strategy. We didn't really look at redesigning Francis Square, but Public Works, we actually went in and did a lot of improvements to the landscaping to make it visually much more appealing than what it was. So that was a positive. We've talked about expanding the number of events that are occurring. And right now, there's not a big, my words, a big push for expanding events. It's kind of making sure what we're doing correctly. But there has been discussions about a sculpture festival in town. So we talked about it last year. We hope that that will come forward in the next year or two within downtown area. We actually made a connection there through the Yamhill County Cultural Coalition, who was talking about a sculpture festival, and connected them with our downtown coalition. And so, like, well, don't duplicate services, let's connect, and maybe you could have a weekend in Yamhill County where you may be doing an event with art and sculpture here, and then you go down to the next big community down the road and you're dealing with art at that location as well. So those are under discussion. The cultural district, and so they applied for a grant to the TLT committee that did not get approved, but there was a grant approval by council to the cultural center for the culinary kitchen, so that's a way to continue to build that area out to attract more people. The classic car concourse, I think, is kind of withered on the vine. It's not going to go much, but a direction forward. And then, of course, there's the TLT committee, and you've heard numerous summaries on the activities that they've been doing, and you've seen all of the grants that came forward for both the small grant program and the large grant program. Just because we focused on those, and that's just a quick summary, you've got the full report, doesn't mean we forgot about things in the first year that need to continue on. And so we did that in the industrial and commercial side as well. And so then we had some other things in the business development. So again, the chambers, what they're doing on the Business Resource Center, expanding the facility and operation, so they're working on that. Chamber promoted itself this year, Portland Chemeketa College programs, and again, conversation between both of those institutions. And of course, promoting George Fox is something that we do on a regular basis. Evaluating that mid-tier hotel. You heard about that several times this evening. And coordinating events calendars. And so Downtown Coalition has their calendar, Chamber has their calendar. We have stuff that we keep track of, is trying to find the way that knits all of those together. So we continue to talk about that, and the Chamber says we're willing to host all. We just got to have the information needs to feed to us. And so then the core group that's there is Carl Biggerstaff, Mike Ragsdale, Mary Martin Miller, Jay Harris, Joe, and myself. The year in review in 15 minutes or less.
Questions or comments for staff?
Well,
City Manager?
Well, just one. I know it's long, but I know you get asked questions about what's the city doing in economic development. Keep this PowerPoint where you can get to it sometime. I mean, it can blow people away when you just sit down, you go down that list of all the stuff going on. So there is a lot. I think there's a lot that you can be proud of. We're sure proud of the stuff. Always can do more and all that. But that, like, if you go to the LOC, take that with you if you want to get, you know, some oohs and ahs from people. Now, be prepared, then they're going to say, oh, would you send me this or that? But there's a lot going on, really and truly.
Mr. Johnson?
I'd like to request, and this is for staff, and I know we have a pretty robust work schedule, but I feel like there's folks on council, myself included, who don't completely, and maybe we bring in an outside person to educate us on this, but when the use of TLT dollars outside of city limits, the more I learn about it, the more I understand how, yes, we can invest in hotels and attractions here, but having a robust kind of market area, like when you place a shopping center and you look at the whole surrounding area, and helping and the legalities and pitfalls and things we should think about when people apply for grants, or we look to do things like a Wolves and People that's outside of the city limits but will attract people who are staying in Newberg, and just how that all works, because I know I kind of have a loose grasp on it, but I'd love to learn more, or even just send us an email saying where we can read more about those types of issues, because that would be something.
What you asked for.
I mean, I just want to be able to, when somebody asks me, well, that's outside of city limits, why are you spending TLT dollars on that? You know, my go-to answer is, well, those people staying in our hotels and paying that TLT tax aren't just staying in Newberg city limits. They're going out to, you know, they're going up to Bald Park, and they're going down to, you know, the wineries in Dundee, and they're going all over the place. So,
Mr. Mayor, we can do that, but I think that most of that's going to be moot if we go to using our money for marketing, which is okay. But if we go that way, that kind of discussion will be, well, yeah, we won't, at least for the short term, while if you go along with the concept of shifting, we can do that to try to help. The Wolves and People was an unusual thing, but you know.
Thank you. Did you have more? Very good. Council business, Mr. Essen.
Yes, just to give you an overview of where we're at and where we started from on transit. When I first went on the committee, the first the first meeting, they were saying you have, I think we have 2 routes or something here, and we wanted to eliminate them.
Say what?
The start of the transit committee was our routes in town here. They were thinking they wanted to eliminate our routes and go completely eliminate the routes. And so what I posed to the question of, do you have bus stops? Well, not really. We have a couple of bus stops, and one of our main bus stops was eliminated, being the one at Safeway. So that's where we started. In the meantime, I said that I would, let's start looking if we could set up a system, if it would work. And at the same time, we had the transportation plan that was passed. I think it was $1 trillion, and part of that plan, it was transit money. So there was transit money, and that's what I brought to everybody's attention. Oh, there's money, let's go after it. So the Yamhill County Transit Area Development Plan interim draft was finally submitted, and Joe's been heavily involved in this. He was at the meetings, but that was on July 26th. So the plan as presented now has short-term and long-term goals, and the short-term goal is now to actually install new bus stop markings, signs, bus schedules, and system maps. And then they're also doing some wrapping of the buses, clearly marked buses, and maps so that people have a clear idea where they can go. So with the new graphics and wraps were submitted to the Transit Committee at the July 26th meeting. Graphic vendors will be selected on August 17th, and Joe notes that some of our Newberg businesses are going to be competing to get that business. Final presentations for the wraps and getting this set up will be presented to the board on August 23rd through 30th, and the bus graphic installation is estimated to happen.
The bus what?
The bus graphic installation.
The wraps.
The wraps. They're going to go into. It's estimated they'll be wrapped, and our buses will now look like what they are. They'll be marked, and in addition to that, there's long and short-term goals, and the short-term goal for our city is, and again, a lot of this is all Joe, because he came up, well, the staff, I guess, and I know they all got together and came up with these 4 routes. Well, they're now going to implement those 4 routes this year, and that's going to include the one up to the Austin area. That's going to be one of the new routes. It'll also go down by the college and by the pool. There'll be two routes that will now go by the pool. There's going to be 4 total routes. So in 2020,
will there be a continued service to PCC?
What's that?
Will there be continued service to PCC?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we'll actually have expanded service, buses that are wrapped, and their goal is to start installing these bus stops that are real bus stops. So we'll have an actual real bus system. And what I was saying in the beginning is, you're not going to have riderships if you don't have a real bus stop system. Nobody's going to stand there and guess where the spot is that you flag down the bus, or since you don't know when it's coming. And now they're going to have schedules. They're going to be, so it's really, they've spent a lot of money on this plan, and they expect to have some money, and so, but it's not coming in all at once. But they set it up with, okay, we can do this right now, and what I just described is what they can do right now. In 2020 through 2023, it's called the STIF, will allow phase expansion as 1.1 million in funding is implemented. So they'll have more money. A lot of this money is going to allow for improvement at bus stops and the fleet expansion. And without buses, you don't have a good bus system there. So that's going to take a while. So I won't be here, but future councils will be here, and this stuff will be brought. As you know, I'm going off council on January 1st. But I'm still committed to stay with this committee to the mayor as long as he wants me to, or whoever wants me to. What they're saying now is, and get ready for this, in 2023 through 2027, local funding will be needed to allow desired enhancement. When I say desired enhancement, I'm going to read them in a second, a few of them. Various options are being considered for how we're going to get that money, how the county is going to get that money. They're going to actually have to go to the voters probably. And one of the potential concepts is to go to the voters for income tax assessment, which that's, again, the county's going to do that. And Joe pointed out to the board that they probably that's going to really come from all of our employers. So they ought to be meeting with the employers to find out, what the support's going to be for that. So I'm hopefully he's going to
use a payroll tax, right?
Yeah, the payroll tax. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said income tax. So basically that comes from the employers. And so now the county hadn't done anything to get ready for that, to see what kind of support there was. But I, at the last meeting, said, look, you didn't have a bus system, and now you're going to go to ask for all this money. How about putting the bus system in place, let people see that it actually exists, and then start asking for more money? And I got total agreement from staff on that. So they said it's going to be 3 to 4 years before they ever get around to asking for that kind of stuff. But the big thing is we've got our new bus additional bus route coming, and then we talked, and Joe said that he had talked to staff, and staff is working to come up with a street that'll be used for a potential transit-only interchange street. So, and that's something you'll be working with the staff. Yeah, with the staff, with the transit staff. So there is a map, and I could give it all to you, but and I suppose we could send that off to him. This map shows near term, far term, whatever the maps or routes are going to be. And some of the things I just let's see. Some of the near term. They're going to implement local service changes in McMinnville. They're going to implement local service changes in Newberg. They're going to add trips on Route 44 between McMinnville and Newberg. Modify Route 44 to run along the Oregon 99 West in McMinnville. Modify Route 33 to relocate to the westbound Forest Grove stop and add eastbound and westbound stops at Walmart Cornelius. So they've got big plans. Implement a pilot shopper medical shuffle, serving Sheridan, Wilhelmina, Amity, Carlton, Yamhill, Dayton, Lafayette, Newberg, Dundee, and McMinnville. So they're going to set up these pilot shopper and medical trips to see if that's going to work. They're going to mark and sign all bus stops and install amenities. And that's near term. So, and that doesn't even get into the long term. Some of the long termers: increase peak period frequency to Salem and Hillsborough, expand Saturday service, implement Sunday service, expand local service. So this is all going to cost money, and that's where they're going to have to get into where we're going to get that money in the next 3 or 4 years. But we can have at least a bus system in Newberg, and we're going to have it. So I think it was worth staff's time and my time to get involved in this, and we just happened to actually walk into something that was already going to happen, and we're able to make it go into place. So hopefully we'll see the results of this, and I'll continue to be on the committee, and we're going to continue to meet. I think there's a meeting coming up with the board in August something, and we'll find out where they're going next on this. But it sounds like, yay, it happened, and they're going to put us a decent bus system, so then we can figure out if it's worth supporting. And the big thing, going to the Austin and the hotel and the new swimming pool with true routes past the swimming pool, and then perhaps having the transit. Now they're not thinking about that. It looked like for 3 years, but you might be able to make that happen quicker if we can get the study. And they're going to conduct a study to see how this could work. And with Joe working with them and the city support, we may get that transit center where everything comes together and you can transfer from one bus route to the next. So that's what they've been working on, and consequently me and Joe and staff have been working on with them, so it's a good thing. So if there's any questions.
Thank you. Sounds like we're making some progress.
Yeah.
And when are they gonna, you didn't have it in your report, when do they start anticipating getting revenue from the state?
I think let's see let me see if I can catch that note. It's like, I think 2020, I mean, big revenue, like $1 million a year. Yeah, I think they're thinking they're gonna start getting the big revenue like 2020.
Okay.
They'll be getting over $1 million a year then.
Sue, you had an item?
Yes, the next local government dinner is coming up. It will be at the city of Yamhill on August 16th. But I need to know by Wednesday if you would like to attend, so I can RSVP. Please note for this dinner there is a choice of entrees. So if you want to attend, you just need to let me know if you want number 1, the pork loin, or number 2, the chicken breast.
Pork.
I so far have you, Joe, and Shelley. Mike gave me his tonight. So if you're not sure, or you need to go home and consult the most important person in your life.
Yes.
Pork for Stephen, okay?
Yeah.
Then just, I need to know Wednesday by noon.
Consult, and I'll get you an email tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
Kids might have a karate test that day. If you don't have a karate test, I'll let you know.
So we have a pretty good contingent going on there. Great. I received a letter August 3rd that I will give to the city recorder. Doug referred to this, and I think he got some advanced knowledge that I wasn't aware of. But we have received an official letter from Business Oregon that as of July 31st, we have officially been awarded our $750,000 for that Crestview extension, $740,000. So we do have it. So if you would pass this down to our city manager, Scott, we'll put that in the record. Sure. And Joe was very gracious in sharing the activities at the OMA. I will have a quick and dirty for you, probably next one on some of the highlights that may be of interest that came out of the OMA conference. Is there anything else for the council? Stirring business?
Mr. Mayor, I have one small point.
See? You didn't tell me that earlier.
No, it's a point of order of what came up in the meeting. So we had the resolution on the master fee schedule. As Dan Coiler was walking out, he asked me whether that was whether we held the public hearing. We had put it on the agenda as an administrative hearing.
No, it was not listed as a hearing.
Okay, so I've read the statute. It's not required that we have a formal hearing in the way like a land use hearing. The statute merely requires that the local government provide opportunity for interested persons to comment on the enactment of any ordinance or resolution about fees. And I believe the city has done that by putting this on the agenda, having this here. So I think, though, just to be clear, we should have the minutes reflect that when that hearing was held, or when we considered that agenda item, that the room was empty, that there was no public here to comment, and get confirmation from the city recorder that there was no written comments on that item either. And I think so long as the minutes reflect those two pieces, we're probably
there's one
fine.
more, as long as we're critiquing ourselves, then there's one more. The mayor needs to know if there's going to be a hearing or not, and that was not listed on the agenda, whether it was could be a hearing, whether it was administrative or anything else. There was no guidance there.
It is listed as one of the 4 public hearings
But
under that
what kind
section.
of a hearing?
I'm just letting you know on the agenda,
So,
it is
that
reflected
doesn't give
as
your
a
mayor
public
the
hearing.
guidance of what kind of a hearing it
Well,
is.
that's feedback you need to give to Joe as far as the staff report goes. As far
I'm
as
not
the
arguing this. I think we may not have just.
Yeah, that's a good comment.
No, you don't know what it is, so.
But I think so long as we can have the minutes reflect that that was
I
in
think
fact
that would
what
be-
happened, I think we've satisfied the
And
statute.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm
Anything
not
else?
trying to argue it either, but I want it noted, the public hearing was listed on the agenda. Okay, so it was listed as a public hearing. The public knew, and no one came.
It was really kind of a housekeeping type of thing anyway, wasn't it? Hey, it's done, buddy.
This is the date of the celebration. There's no more animal shelter.
We are now adjourned because of the motion made by Councilor Johnson.